So you just installed GrapheneOS on your device, you are presented with this black screen, and you are wondering, what the hell did I get myself into? I'm going to start with a quick walkthrough of what apps come stock with the OS just to get you a little bit more comfortable with what's on your phone. So if you swipe up, the first app we have here is Apps. We're going to be referencing that a little bit later. That's used to install some additional GrapheneOS apps that are available. Next, we have the Auditor app, and that uses hardware-based security features to validate the identity of a device along with authenticity and integrity of the operating system. More than likely, you won't be using this app, but it's good to know what it is so when you see it, you're not confused. Calculator, camera, clock, contacts, all pretty standard. Files, gallery, messages, again, standard apps that come with a phone. The next one is a PDF viewer that's used for viewing PDFs, as the name implies. And I've heard from a subscriber that it can be pretty difficult to find a good PDF viewer. So far, I've been happy with the GrapheneOS one. Works for everything I need. Following that, we have phone and settings. Again, both pretty standard. And lastly, that brings us to Vanadium, which is the default browser included with GrapheneOS, and it is a hardened version of the Chromium browser. So with the initial overview out of the way, there's a few additional apps you're going to want to install. The first is F-Droid, which is a catalog of free and open source Android applications. So to install that, we're going to be using Vanadium. So swipe up and select Vanadium. Go up to the browser bar and type in f-droid.org. I'll have a link down below in the description box with a link out to my website referencing anything I mentioned in today's video, including links and other videos, in case you want to take a look at that. So once you get f-droid.org typed out, go ahead and click the green button in the bottom right hand corner. If you see this warning, it's because we're being redirected to HTTPS, so click continue to site. So once you get here, click on download F-Droid, click download. That's just a quick warning that you're downloading an APK and it could be harmful. Give that a minute to download. And once that finishes, go ahead and click open. So by default, apps are blocked from installing APKs on your device for security purposes. So since we do want to install the APK we just downloaded, go ahead and click on settings. Install unknown apps, allow from this source, enable that. We can now see the pop-up, do you want to install F-Droid? Yes, click install. Once that finishes, click done. Hit the back button. And now let's swipe up to go to our home screen. We can see F-Droid was installed. Go ahead and select that. You might see this warning, you can just ignore this. Click OK. So as I mentioned earlier, F-Droid is a catalog of free and open source applications, and I'll be linking some videos later that go over the install of some additional apps that are from F-Droid, so keep a lookout for those. So now that we have F-Droid installed, the next app we want to install using F-Droid is called Aurora Store. This is going to be your Google Play Store replacement. It allows you to download apps directly from there anonymously. So to install that, we're going to click the green search button and type Aurora Store. So once you see that, Aurora Store, a Google Play Store client, click on that, and then select install. Give that a minute to download. So similar to Vanadium, we're getting that warning again that F-Droid wants to install unknown apps from this source. So click settings, enable allow from this source. We now get the pop-up, do you want to install Aurora Store? Select install. Once that finishes, we can click back and then swipe up to go to our home screen. And you should now see the Aurora Store icon. Go ahead and select that. We'll just go through the initial setup. Some FAQs, license, privacy policy. You should get a pop-up for the terms of service. Select I have read them. Click accept. Next. We're going to leave this set to the default session installer. Select next. Theme, change it if you want to. I just leave it on system. Accent, again, change it if you want to. And now Aurora Store requires 3 different types of permissions, and we need to grant all 3 of these in order for it to work correctly. So the first one is external storage access. Select grant, allow. External storage manager, grant, select Aurora Store, enable allow access to manage all files, back, and then lastly installer permission, grant, allow from this source, select back. Once everything says granted, you can go ahead and click finish. So once you get to this screen, you're presented with 3 different login options. The first option is to log in using your Google account. I personally don't use that option, but it is useful if you've purchased apps from Google Play in the past and you want to use those on GrapheneOS. The next option is anonymous, and this is the one I primarily use. This option lets you log in using one of the accounts from the pool of Google accounts that the Aurora store developers created. This should work for most apps that you need, and that's the option I would suggest starting with. So the last option available is Anonymous Insecure. And the way this differs is that when you select the anonymous login option, the session token that's generated is done on a server based out of France. At least I believe it's France last time I checked. That's run by the Aurora store developers. And what this does is it uses the France IP address to generate the token. Therefore, Google Store then thinks you're located in France. So while that's great for keeping you anonymous, the downside is that if there's an app that's region locked to, say, the United States, you won't see that then, since Google Play Store thinks you're located in France, or whatever country the token's being generated in. So that's why the Anonymous Insecure option exists. And what happens when you click that option is that your local IP address is used to generate the token that is sent to Google, and you will now see apps located to your region. I've had to use this a few times because there are some apps that are region locked and not available. So when I use that option, I'm able to see them. Then I go back to using the anonymous option. So just to sum that up quick, if you log in using the anonymous option, you don't see an app you're looking for, log back in using the Anonymous Insecure, download the app, and then go back to using the full anonymous option. So now that we went over the differences between the ways to log in, let's go ahead and select anonymous. And if everything worked as expected, you should be presented with what looks like a Google Play Store. From here, you can search for an app you're interested in. Once you find it, select it, and it's as easy as clicking install. And it's not your phone without your contacts and calendars. I made videos on both of these topics in the past, so I'll link those on screen now and down below if you're interested. I would suggest backing up your phone once you do get it all set up. Again, I'll link that video on the screen now. And lastly, there might be apps you need to use that require Google services, or you want notifications to be fully functional. If that's the case, here's a video on how to do that. And at this point, you should be all set to start installing apps and customizing GrapheneOS to make it your own. If you have any questions on something I covered or something I didn't cover, please let me know down below in the comments.